What's going on, everyone? What's going on? Welcome in, welcome in. Get started here just shortly. Someone can just give me a quick mic check, make sure we're good to go. Um, that there's no errors. You can hear me pretty loud and clear. What's going on, Randy? Give me just a quick mic check. If anyone. Today was definitely. I feel like today was actually one of those days where everything was felt like it was kind of moving in slow motion, but at the same time, it felt like a very pivotal day in which the market's kind of making a turn, and I'll kind of say why. What's going on, Tom? Tom, I know you were pretty active today. What's going on, guys? Welcome in, welcome in. Get started here in just a second. Um, I think Tom kind of gave me the heads up. Looks like we're okay. Appreciate it, Randy. All right, so today was one of those days where I felt like everything kind of moved in a little bit of a slow motion type of action. We had that nice little morning pump, kind of gave bulls some hope. But then what I've been saying these past few days is that it literally felt like every pump that you got in this bear market scenario is that you basically short any pump, any bounce you short it, and that's exactly what continued to happen going into today. All right, and that's literally what's been in this bear market. Instead of buying the dips, you're basically shorting the rips, and that's exactly what if you did it this morning, you basically ended up shorting the rip, and then you ended up paying. I think like by lunchtime or so, the Apple was down about $7-8, and look at that, Tom actually made a ton off of Apple put. So that was definitely just beautiful. Turn those candles to red to yellow. All right, friend, I'm gonna do it just for you. All right, you want yellow? All right, I'm gonna turn it just to yellow, just for you, Gaston, just for you. Just because I love you so much, I'm gonna turn it to yellow. All right, is that better for you? Although you're messing with my lines, I'm not gonna lie. All right, I turned it to yellow just for you. Okay, there you go. But again, today's price action. You short the rip this morning. That's basically been the scenario for the past few days. You could say the past few weeks, and that's exactly what I saw. What actually caught my attention today was particularly the fact that we hit my short-term target that I was watching for, and that was basically off of the COVID low that we had. If you actually pull up an anchored VWAP and you drop it here, it basically ends up being right into that 383 spot, and that's particularly what I'm watching for today was that I was watching for that 383 spot. And I want to make sure I anchored that in the right spot. Did I? Okay, yeah, it's in the right spot. All right, so yeah, 383 was the spot I was watching. My target specifically was 385. I came out live here and I said that, and that's right into that red zone that we have. That was the spot I was watching for. Chargers colors. It's funny. But yeah, spot hit my target. 385 was where I was looking for. That was the turning point that I was looking for right now. I'll go through a few names that kind of look like they've hit some support as well. And that's why I kind of titled today's segment a little bit of a market reversal. Now, am I saying that this is the ultimate bottom? No, I don't think it's the ultimate bottom here. I think we have a lot more to go down, particularly. But I think we're due for a little bit of a bounce in which we're deadly in oversold territory. That slow bleed today that we've had, it really felt like there was a lot of accumulation by bigger buyers, these market makers, these hedge funds. It kind of felt like they were kind of loading up off of that slow bleed that we had today. That's really just what I was pretty much looking at in terms of tape, looking at large buy orders. It really just felt like a little bit of accumulation for a particular short term bounce. And that's what I was looking at. And so that's what, and as you see, Gaston pretty much said that, you have a nice doji here right now. And we're going to look to see if we can basically build a base off of this, get a nice short term bounce, particularly look to see if we can break that 395 spot. We break over the 395 spot, then I'm looking at 398. And then if we actually do extend this, the spot that I was particularly looking at is the 406 spot. That's what I'm looking at. 406 is where I'm targeting onto this reversal, and that's what I'm going to be looking at potentially 406. And now it gets a little bit of a gray area between 406 to 410. That's where I think it's going to be a little bit more of a gray shaded area in which that's what I'm going to look to see at what point in that time I'm going to look to short, which we'll get there once we get to that range. But 406 is ideally the spot that I want to see, in which I think that's going to be our downfall, in which we go right back down. But that's left to be seen. I want to see the strength out of this reversal that we have. Obviously, we need to see a follow through off of what we had today. That was a beautiful break out of that downtrend that we had today. to end into the power hour there. So that was a good sign of relief, and that's why it kind of also gave me a fact that despite looking at the tape with all the large buy orders looking like accumulation, having that beautiful downtrend break, and then looking to see that we almost went basically red to green today into the close. If we actually do open up green tomorrow, that's going to be a sigh of relief, and that's what I'm going to be looking at and geared towards, and pretty much positioning myself for some calls going into tomorrow. So I think we're setting up for a beautiful day for 0 day calls tomorrow, particularly. But obviously, we want to see that break. We want to see us hold over that 305 spot. Otherwise, if we come back under the 387, then that's when we're risking to pretty much retest the lows that we have on the 385. But that was my ultimate bottom. That's basically what I said, and I came on live here yesterday and I mentioned 385 was my spot. I didn't have anything noted below just yet because that was the bottom that I was looking for short term. And then also looking at that anchored VWAP from COVID lows, that was my other confluence in terms of looking for a near term bottom. All right. So that's just pretty much simple and sweet what I'm looking at with SPY. All right. Just some other names that pretty much crossed my mind. Of course, and I'll actually look at Apple first because actually Apple's day that we had today was pretty astonishing. I was not expecting that to go down as much as it did today. That actually caught me a little bit off guard. Can I pull this off for the weekly? Probably will pull us off of the weekly. All right, yeah, we can look at this on the weekly. Apple's move. Once I saw this down about $7 or $8 during lunchtime, I didn't realize how much Apple had weighed down the market. That was something that caught me a little bit off guard here today. But what actually was more astonishing to me was the fact of where we ended up waking down to these lows. We smacked down towards 138.80, and the confluence that we basically had from basically last year to where we had pivotal breakouts and support is what actually more mattered to me as well, in which it's in conjunction with where SPY ended up going down to the 385 spot, right? We had resistance here backdating towards December of 2020, and that was also the breakout point that you had from June of last year. Now, once you break out from June of last year, where did you end up retesting? It was basically the same level that we smacked off of the lows here of Apple on today. So we basically retested that 138 spot that we ended up having as a breakout support test from October of last year. And that's where I'm looking to see if we can get that short term bounce off of. As you see, that was a very strong bounce that you have from 138 lows today. So that's what I'm going to look to see if we can build off of that. In terms of upside, I'm going to be looking at the 145 and a quarter spot. That's basically your high that dates back towards January of last year. That's what I'm going to be looking at in terms of upside. So we'll see if we can get up towards 145. That's roughly about a $3 upside from where we're sitting at after hours, I want to say. And that's what I'm going to be looking at also with the reversal in SPY tomorrow. So if we can get over the 145, then potentially we could end up seeing this get back towards that pivotal level of 150, where that acted as a resistance here for roughly between July of last year up until November of last year before we made that insane run to all-time highs. So 150 is going to be a very pivotal spot. And then that's where we're going to end up looking to see if we basically get up towards that level. If this little bear market rally ends up extending beyond 145. All right. So that's just basically two mental numbers that are actually just sitting there. 145 and 150 are basically your pivotal levels. Otherwise, if you particularly lose again this 141, 141 is not going to be pretty because then you're likely going to end up retesting that low, that 138. All right. So that's what I'll particularly be looking at in terms of Apple as well. The other name, and this may end up actually being my 0 day tomorrow. I haven't thought about it just yet, but I think Tesla might end up being my 0 day tomorrow. We had a beautiful bounce off of that low that we had today. I know that we had the cloud alert that also went off with Tesla. Unfortunately, that didn't play out because it actually hit towards the bottom of where SPY was just in that downtrend break. So that was not a beautiful one, particularly. We'll see. I know that it's actually hit about 3 to 4 times in the beta just before we sent it live. So, granted, the fact it's roughly about 80 percentile win rate, and it already had about 4 to 5 wins in beta. I can completely understand it. So we should be able to rebound on the next alert for Tesla. But what actually caught my attention here today was that I was actually watching towards the resistance that we had, also support or resistance, you want to say, that pretty much dates back towards the middle of the ending of 2020. And so what I was actually looking at is that we actually were able to reclaim the high that we put in from December of 2020 and also the breakout point that we had from August of last year that pretty much led us to the entire run of all-time highs, pushing north of 1200. So I actually wanted to see the fact if we were able to hold this 697 level. That was the pivotal mark that I wanted to see if we could hold 697. We ended up bouncing up back off of it. We didn't end up breaking back under. So that was the convincing part. Going into tomorrow and actually in the next few days, I want to see how we pretty much hold and sustain above the 697 level. And actually today was a beautiful bounce. In terms of this now is that obviously we know I know where my major support level is that 697 level, but in terms of upside, this is where I'm going to be looking at in terms of the it's a, roughly the 764 level is what I'm looking at for upside. So that's likely going to end up being where I'm going to play the upside here tomorrow. If we do get a broader market bounce, um, continuation of this reversal that we had from today's break, I'm going to be looking at 764 for my upside. And that's confluence in which we basically had a nice little breakdown. We had the nice little push towards all-time highs back from January of last year. You see, you had a nice wedge. You broke down at that level, at that 764 level. And then where did we end up breaking back out again before we made that run to all-time highs? It was the exact same level of September of last year. So 764 looks like it's going to be the breakdown retest spot. And that's what I'm going to be looking to get your retest of your breakdown that we had from September of 2021. All right. So 764, that's the upside tomorrow. Likely look out towards 750 to 760 calls. Just depends on premium, volume, etc. And I'll be looking to play the upside here to 764 tomorrow, which we should be able to get a pretty solid day tomorrow off of Tesla here. Instead of pretty much playing some other names, I know that Amazon's another name that caught my attention. I love that one, and Apple rebounding towards that 150. It's just I know the premiums and the way that Tesla moves, and especially 0 day with that. I think I can capture a larger move and larger gains with it. That's just my preference, right? So 764, we'll see how that reacts. Otherwise, your downside, you're risking breaking down under 697, and you're gonna end up playing puts in which your downside target is sitting right around that 652 mark. All right, and that's pretty much what I would look at in terms of Tesla. All right. So those are pretty much two that I've been very high on in terms of my market direction right now. I know that Microsoft is usually one of the names that I particularly look at, but Microsoft has definitely been in the gutter right now. It has not been acting very well as of right now. A lot of doji sitting all over the place right now, and I'm pretty much in confluence with the anchored VWAP on SPY that we're sitting at. Everything points to the fact that we have a dead cat. We have a little more of a continuation to the upside off of the reversal that we had intraday here. All right. So that's pretty much the big picture that I basically wanted to express to everyone. All right. But other than that, if we can get a nice bounce out of Microsoft, I think we're pretty much looking at towards 258. 258 is that spot I want to see. It may end up acting as a resistance here just because of how weak Microsoft has been the past few days. I'm a little bit more hesitant to say that we're going to get such a strong move out of Microsoft compared to maybe an Apple or a Tesla. So 280, 258 is that spot I'm watching. If we get a break over 258, then the level I'm watching here is 261. All right. So 258 then 261 on Microsoft. Otherwise, we basically look at risking a breakdown and possibly making even more lows below 250, 170. All right. So that's pretty much what I would mention. Those are the three names that kind of stand out in terms of market direction, broader direction. Other than that, we'll be paying attention to the cloud alerts tomorrow. We'll see what that has for us. The floor alerts have actually been doing pretty solid. I know that I've seen pretty much a few of you in the premium chat been taking the Nimbus and the unusuals. Those have been paying out pretty well. I think the amount of money flooding into those have been pretty extraordinary. I know there's one point also the minor flow, and that's actually something that's very underrated. I think is the minor flow. There was one moment in time, I think earlier in the morning, around roughly around like about 2 hours after the market opened, where we had that nice little pump, early morning pump, and then the entire minor flow just started to go red. What did that tell me? It just told me that shorts were basically stepping in, and that's basically what ended up happening, right? The step short stepped in, and what did we have for majority of the day? We had that nice strong slow bleed. And so that's what I was actually gearing towards. That's what I was actually looking at. And that actually kind of gave me a little bit of my market direction. That's why I say it's a little bit underrated. It definitely tells you if those repeat buyers are there, where they're really just hitting. aside from the Nimbus and the unusuals that really hit with the larger amount of premium, I think the minor flow actually tells you a little bit more of the repeated call flow that is indicating whether there's a large number of buys or a large number of sell orders. All right. So that's something that's a little bit underrated. Thought I'd just mention that to everyone. But I think that's pretty much what I wanted to highlight today was the three major names, highlighting the pivotal point of where SPY was today. And that's actually what stood out to me for most of the day. So I didn't have too much to say on live today. Obviously, the fact that it was just more so a slow bleed, looking to see if there was accumulation on that bleed to the downside. That's more so what I was geared towards looking at on the back end. And then the other factor was trying to find out if we're going to hold that pivotal level that I mentioned yesterday. And I came on live saying 385 is what I was looking at for downside. We smacked the 385 nearly dead on, and we had the beautiful bounce into the end of the day, breaking the downtrend resistance. So um, no, big picture, let's see if we can build off of the doji that's sitting at the bottom there. See if we can build and hold that anchored view up that's sitting on from the COVID lows of SPY. And that's what I'm going to look to see if we can get a stronger bounce going into tomorrow and hopefully into next week. The only thing to keep in mind, and this is kind of a reminder to myself and to everyone else, is that we are still in a bear market. All right, this is basically a bear market, and what's going to end up happening is that even if we do get a nice little rally starting possibly tomorrow, don't get away from the bigger picture that this is going to likely end up being a bear market rally. This is not going to be a full on reversal from the market, meaning that this is not necessarily the bottom that we have put in for the foreseeable future here this year, basically on SPY. So that's just something, not to be biased in terms of market direction. Just be mindful of the fact that, we do have other catalysts coming up. We have OPEX coming up. I'm sure there's going to be another Fed meeting coming up. The Fed rate hikes are going to be in focus yet again. I think that's pretty much approaching here in June. That's something else that you want to be mindful of. So even though we're going to get a nice little bear market rally that's likely on the horizon starting tomorrow, be mindful of the fact that this is likely not the bottom that we've put in today. And we're likely only going to see a short-term rally that's going to take us right back into breaking the lows that we have today. All right. And that's something I think is pretty much important that, obviously we all want to be where are is this the bottom yet? Is this the bottom yet? No, I don't personally think this is the bottom that we've hit just yet. I think there's a lot more downside to pretty much come from the market, but we are due for a nice little small bounce, and this is likely going to be where our bear market rally starts off of the anchored view up from the COVID lows and the nice little doji that we put in off of today. All right. So that's pretty much what I want to highlight. I think that'll kind of wrap it up. Keep it short and sweet here. We'll see what tomorrow's market rally hopefully starts, if it does for that matter. Likely my 0 day tomorrow will be Tesla towards that 764 mark. Like I mentioned, that was pretty much your prior highs that you had. That's going to likely end up being your retest of your breakdown. So I'm going to likely end up playing 0 days on that towards the 764 mark. But I'll just likely be paying attention to cloud alerts and the flow alerts. All right. So I'll keep it short and sweet there. I'll call it a wrap. And then other than that, I'll be on live tomorrow morning. See you guys. We'll see what the market wants to give us. But other than that, it's a wrap. I'll see you guys. Appreciate you guys joining. All right.